Happy Friday. How are y'all doing on this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day? All right, listen, we are going to be talking about what beginners get wrong about their first offer. I'm going to be giving you all the lessons that I have learned along this journey so you don't have to make the same mistakes that I have made, okay? Is that all right with you? Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. Because if you're currently trying to build your first offer online, whether that's coaching, consulting, a course, a digital product, a membership, or something you haven't fully figured out yet, today's conversation might save you months of confusion, frustration, overthinking, and a lot of unnecessary disappointment. Take it from me. Listen. One of the biggest lies in the online business space is that building your offer is the business, and it's not. And I really wish somebody would have said that to me earlier in my journey. A lot of people enter entrepreneurship believing the sequence goes like this: you come up with an idea, you create something, you post it online, and then people buy it. But what happens for most people is something very, very different. They spend weeks or months building something in isolation. Then they launch it to silence, question everything about themselves and their idea. They start over. Then they buy another course. They rebrand 17 times. They change their niche. And then they quietly convince themselves that they are not cut out for this. And the real issue was almost never their potential. It was the strategy. And more specifically, it was the things nobody told them before they started. Listen, I have been building businesses online since 2008. I have made most of the mistakes there are to make. I have built things that have completely flopped. I have pivoted more times than I can count. I have spent thousands of dollars on things that I didn't need at stages that I wasn't ready for. And it was all before I had the clarity to know what it is that I was even trying to build. And then when I reflect back on all of that, what I keep coming back to isn't the tactics, because tactics are learnable. You can find tactics anywhere. What's harder to learn, though, and what nobody really explains clearly when you're first starting out in this space, are the foundational truths that shape everything else. I'm talking about the things that if someone had said them to me earlier in my journey, would have saved me years of spinning and restarting and questioning whether I was even cut out for this. So today I want to give you that conversation. This is not going to be motivational content or just believe in yourself. I won't be telling you to manifest your way to six figures. I am giving you the practical, sometimes uncomfortable business building truths that most beginners learn the hard way and the expensive way. And I'm giving you these lessons because nobody gave them to me. Because getting this right, it isn't just about building a business. It's about building options for yourself. It's about creating income that's not tied to one employer's decision, one industry stability, or one paycheck that could change without your input. And that's what's on the other side of figuring this out. And on Fridays on Nik at Noon, I get to basically talk about whatever I want. So that means we're going to go deep and I'm going to get personal today. So if you haven't already, go get your notebook and your pen because I promise there are going to be some things that you'll want to write down. Welcome back to another episode of Nik at Noon. My name is Nik Scott, and I'm the founder and CEO of Her Income Edit, an online education platform helping professional women turn their existing skills into coaching income and digital products so they can build multiple streams of income beyond a single paycheck. So if you are excellent at what you do, if you are underpaid for what you know, and you're starting to question whether your job is your only option, guess what? You're in the right place. So share this episode with your biz bestie or with another woman who might need to hear what I'm getting ready to say. And if you have any questions or comments as we go through this conversation, drop them in the chat if you're watching live, or in the comments if you are watching the replay. And before we get into today's episode, I do need to mention something because it directly ties into everything that we're getting ready to talk about. Early access registration for Her Income Lab, it is open. It has been open all week. So if you haven't heard about it yet, Her Income Lab is a live working session, and it's happening on May 30th. And this is where women are going to build a high ticket coaching offer in real time. So this isn't another webinar where you take notes and then you go back to the workbook 3 months later. We are going to be building your offer that day in the room. You're going to leave with your offer, your pricing, your positioning, your pitch, and your second stream of income will be in motion. So I am limiting this to 30 seats, and once they're gone, they are gone. Early access prices ends on this Sunday, May 10th. And right now, general admission is $97, or you can upgrade your experience to the VIP for $147. After Sunday, the price is going up. So if you've been sitting on your skills, if you've been sitting on ideas, or if you've been sitting on that thing people keep telling you that you should be charging for, the link is in the description. Now, let's get into this conversation. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. Let's get into this conversation. I am telling you all the lessons that I have learned so you don't have to make the mistakes that I made over all of these years that I've been doing this. So the first lesson is your first offer is not your forever offer. And I'm going to say that again. Your first offer is not your forever offer. The first thing, this is literally the first thing that I wish somebody would have told me. Because listen, your offer is going to change. It's going to have a life of its own, and that's okay. Because too many times beginners in this space put too much pressure on themselves to create the perfect thing right out the gate. They're trying to create the perfect niche, the perfect business model, the perfect branding, the perfect framework with the perfect name, the perfect offer structure and price point, all of it locked in before they have ever sold anything to anyone. And because they believe this first version has to last forever, they move super slow, like literally at the pace that pond water moves. They spend 6 months building something that nobody has even seen or validated. They design a full website for a business they haven't launched yet. They record an entire course before confirming that anyone wants what's inside of it. They create a logo before they have a single client. And then when it doesn't immediately take off, beginners start to feel like they failed. They assume that something is wrong with their idea, their niche, their offer, or worse, they feel like something's wrong with themselves. So then what happens? They go back to the drawing board and they start the whole process over. And the cycle repeats because the root belief never changed. And that belief is if they just build the right thing the first time, everything will work. But here's what I know now that I wish somebody would have told me back then. And that is that most successful entrepreneurs, they don't start with the thing that they're known for today. They evolved into it. And your first offer is rarely going to be your final offer. It's the beginning of a conversation with the market that eventually leads to the final thing. So your first offer is often the bridge between where you are right now and where your business clarity develops. And that matters because clarity isn't created through just thinking about it. Clarity is created through motion. You can't think your way to business clarity. I tried it. It doesn't work. You have to build your way into it. You have to talk to people. You have to sell something. You have to deliver that something. You have to get feedback from humans who paid you And from that feedback, you learn more about your audience and your own strengths than you ever could have uncovered inside planning in a Google Doc. The thing is that the market will teach you things that no amount of research can replicate. The market will teach you these things. Somebody drop market in the comments. And let me tell you specifically what your first offer will teach you, because this perspective changes the way you approach the whole thing. Your very first offer will teach you what people need versus what you assumed they needed. Those two things are very, very different. Your first offer will teach you what people are willing to pay for, which isn't always the same as what you believe is the most valuable. Your first offer will teach you what problems you solve the best, what delivery style fits your personality, what aspects of the work drain you, and what aspects of this work energize you, what messaging resonates with your audience, and what leaves your audience confused. Your first offer will also tell you where your natural strengths are in ways you never could have predicted in advance. You can't get that information from brainstorming. You can brainstorm all day long. You can't get that information. You get it from doing. The genius is in the doing. You have heard me say that before. And that's exactly the thing that people resist, because the doing, before everything feels perfect, it feels risky. But here's what I want you to think about. The women who are building income from their skills right now, they didn't start from a place of certainty either. They started from a decision to find out. So your first offer isn't a final verdict on your potential, it's a starting point. And the sooner you give yourself permission to treat it that way, the sooner you can stop waiting for perfect and start building something. And I want to say something else about this. I want to say something specific to the women who are watching this, because this right here is important. If you have been in your field, whatever your industry is, if you've been working in your field for 5, 10, 15 or more years, you are not starting from scratch. You're starting from ahead. You're already ahead of the game. The skills that you've built, they just don't belong on a resume. That's the raw material for your offer. The things that come naturally to you, the problems you solve without thinking, the judgment calls you make that take newer people months to develop, those are exactly the skills that people will pay a premium for. You don't need to become someone else to build your first offer. You need to recognize the value that you already are. Now, let me make this a little bit personal for a second, because at the beginning I said I was going to get a little personal with this, right? Ooh, y'all didn't tell me my hair was messed up. So let me make this personal. So my first coaching offer wasn't what I eventually have built my business around. It was in the right general direction, and I knew I wanted to help women build businesses, but I hadn't figured out the specificity around that yet. I hadn't talked to enough people to know exactly where the real pain points were. I was essentially guessing, and some of what I guessed was right, but some of what I guessed was wrong. And I could only tell the difference because I sold it, because I delivered it, and I watched what happened. So the things that resonated about that first offer, I kept them. And the things that confused people or didn't resonate, I cut them out or I reworked them. And I'm telling you this not as a failure story, but I'm sharing it because that is just how businesses get built. They get built through iteration, not through instant perfection. And the version of me who spent 6 months trying to make that first offer perfect before releasing it would have learned nothing and helped no one. But the version of me who shipped it as imperfect as it was, and the version of me that paid attention to what happened, I learned more in 3 months of delivery than I could have learned in a year of planning. So that is the first lesson. Lesson number 2. Most people build offers before they build demand. Most people are building their offers before they build demand. So this is the second thing that I feel like nobody really explains to beginners. And most people build their offers before they've built any connection to the people that they're trying to sell to. And that order is a big part of why so many first launches feel like you're shouting into a void. Think about what the typical sequence looks like for most people who are new to this. Somebody has an idea, then they spend weeks or months building the thing in isolation without talking to anyone who might buy it. They do it without testing the concept. They do it without getting any input from human beings. They are literally in the lab, for lack of a better word, like a mad scientist, isolated and just building this thing. Then they launch it to their existing network of people who were not expecting it and they don't even fully understand it. So then when the sales don't come, they assume that something is wrong with the offer itself. So they think the answer is a better logo, a more professional website, another certification, a different business name, a new niche, and a complete rebrand, right? So then they start to rebuild from scratch again and repeat the same pattern with the same result. But the issue was almost never the offer itself. The issue was that nobody knew who they were. Nobody understood what problem they solved. And nobody had accumulated enough trust in them to say yes to something they had never heard about before. I want to say this, and I want this to be like something that we normalize in this space. An audience is not a follower count. That is not an audience. An audience is accumulated trust. And those are completely different things. So what do you mean by that, Nick? Well, I'm glad you asked. A woman with 1,000 deeply engaged followers who trust her completely will outsell someone with 50,000 followers who barely pay attention to her every single time. Trust isn't built through launching. Trust is not built through launching. Trust is built through showing up consistently, communicating clearly, and demonstrating over and over again that you understand the person you're trying to help better than they understand themselves. That's how trust is built. Trust is built through content that makes people feel seen, that makes people feel heard. It's built through conversations that make people feel like you completely understand them. Trust is built through the accumulation of small moments where someone thought, you know what, Nick Scott gets me, before they even considered paying me. And that's why content matters so much in building a coaching or digital product business. Not because the goal is for you to become an influencer or because you need to go viral before anything happens. Content is important because it reduces uncertainty. So you've heard me say before that your content is your silent sales team that's working for you around the clock. So every video, every email, every post, every live stream, every public conversation, that is helping someone in your potential audience. Remember what I said an audience was. Decide whether you understand their problem well enough to trust you with it. People are not asking themselves, is this offer good? They're asking themselves, does this person get me? And if the answer feels like no, it doesn't matter how good your offer is. The people who build sustainable businesses online aren't usually the loudest, they're the clearest. They're the ones who can describe their audience's problem better than the audience can describe it themselves. They're the ones whose content makes people stop scrolling and think, dang, how did she know that's exactly what I've been going through? So when your content creates that feeling consistently, trust compounds. And when trust compounds, that is when offers convert. So if you're in the early stages and you feel like you're posting into nothing, like you're just, you're putting out this content and there's nothing, I want you to ask yourself this one question before you change your offer or switch your niche. If you're taking notes, you might want to write this question down. And the question is, have I been showing up consistently and specifically enough for the people that you're trying to help, find you and trust you? So have you been showing up consistently and specifically enough for the people you're trying to help find you and trust you? Are you doing that? Because a strong offer with no trust behind it, it will always underperform a decent offer with a real audience relationship supporting it. Build the connection before you perfect the product. That order matters more than most women realize when they're starting out. And here's what building demand looks like in practice. I said this a little earlier, but I'm going to say it again because it deserves to be reiterated. So, building demand in practice looks like showing up consistently in the space where your ideal client already spends their time. It looks like creating content that speaks to the exact problem you solve in language your audience uses to describe it themselves. Building demand, it looks like being willing to give value before anyone has paid you $1, because that free value, that's what makes people trust you enough to eventually pay you. Building demand looks like engaging in conversations rather than just broadcasting. It looks like demonstrating your skills through your thinking, not just claiming it through your bio. And none of what I just described requires a huge following to start. It requires consistency. It requires specificity. It requires patience. Whew, patience. Somebody drop patience in the comments. The trust that compounds, it's going to compound slowly until it doesn't, because then it's going to start to compound suddenly. And when it does, your offer almost sells itself because the relationship was already there. And can I say one more thing about this before I move on? Do y'all mind if I say one more thing about this before I move on? Because I think what I'm about to say belongs in this conversation. A lot of women have never thought of coaching as the vehicle for their second stream of income. And it's because when they hear the word coaching, they assume it's for motivational speakers or life coaches with these huge, giant platforms. But here's the thing. Coaching is really just structured guidance. It is literally helping someone get from where they are to where they want to be using your knowledge, skills, expertise, and experience. And you already have all of that. So the nurse who helps other nurses navigate burnout, or the project manager who helps new project managers lead without losing themselves, or the HR director who helps women negotiate raises, that is coaching. And the trust building that we just talked about, that's what makes those offers sell. You don't need a certification. You don't need a massive social media audience. You need a specific person with a specific problem and the credibility to help them solve it. And most women that I work with, they already have that. They've just not framed it that way yet. Okay? So let's just reframe about what it means to actually have businesses in this space. So the third lesson that I have learned, and the thing that I wish somebody would have told me way back in the day, is that your offer is not just information. And this is something that took me longer to fully understand than it should have. Because the fact is, people are not paying for information anymore because information is everywhere. It is free, it is abundant, and it's available at any hour of the day from literally any device you own. You can find instructions for almost anything with a quick search on fill in the blank. So, if your offer is primarily an information delivery system, a long course with 40 modules, a thick PDF workbook, a giant resource library, you're competing with free. And that's difficult. It is a very difficult competition to win when you're competing with free. What people are paying for today is something entirely different. They're paying for simplification. They want someone to take the overwhelmingly amount of information that exists on their problem, and they want you to take that information and make it easy to navigate. People are paying for specificity. They're paying for guidance that speaks directly to their situation rather than everyone's situation. They're paying for structure that helps them implement the things they already know they should be doing, but haven't been doing because they're not able to organize all this information on their own. People are paying for speed, they're paying for confidence, they're paying for accountability, and they're paying ultimately for the transformation, not information about a transformation. People are paying for the transformation themselves. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. So, this is where beginners in this space get tripped up because they believe that more content equals more value. So, they pack in 50 modules and hundreds pages of bonuses and bonuses after bonuses because they want people to feel like they're getting their money's worth. But that logic only works in academia, it doesn't work in this industry. In this market, more information very often creates more overwhelm. Who has ever been to the Cheesecake Factory? That menu is literally a book, a novel, okay? Like it is so many choices in that menu. It causes every time I go, it causes me decision fatigue. Because the fact is, and there's so much psychology and studies and science behind this, more information creates overwhelm, and an overwhelmed person doesn't move forward. Like if your course has all these 50, 11 modules and bonus after bonus, your client is going to open up the first module. They're going to get confused because they're like, oh my gosh, how am I ever even going to get through all of this? So then they set your course aside with the intention of getting back to it, and then they never do. They finish it maybe on a technicality, or they quietly ask for a refund, or they simply just disappear. The best offers help people move faster because they remove the confusion, not because they add more content. And that is very, very, very important for you to understand. A client who finishes your program and gets a result is worth more to your business than 10 clients who bought the course and got stuck in module 3. Completion creates transformation. Transformation creates testimonials. And guess what those testimonials create, y'all? New sales. So the question you should be asking when building your offer isn't how much content can I include? The question is, what is the minimum amount of content that your person needs to get the result that you're promising? And this connects directly to how you talk about your offer. Your messaging has to do the same work that your offer does. So it has to simplify and clarify and make someone feel like the right path forward is obvious. So if a potential client has read your sales page multiple times, if they have to read your sales page multiple times to understand what they're buying, your messaging is not helping them say yes. I'm going back to the Cheesecake Factory menu. Decision fatigue. I'm overwhelmed by all of these options. I'm confused. Like, what is it that you even specialize in? Cheesecake Factory. You say cheesecake, but you have all these other things, right? Confused people delay. Clear people move. And that clarity in your messaging, it starts with knowing exactly who you help, what specific problem you solve, what does your client's life look like after they've worked with you, and what makes your approach different from every other option they could have chosen. And getting to that level of clarity, it is so much harder than it sounds. But once you have it, baby, everything else becomes easier for you. Now, I want to give you a concrete example of the difference, because I think the gap between an information offer and a transformation offer is easy to see in a real example than just me describing it in the abstract, right? So, an information offer sounds like this. This course covers everything you need to know about starting a coaching business, including branding, marketing, social media, pricing, website setup, and sales. Information. That sounds extremely comprehensive, right? Would you agree? But it doesn't tell anyone what they'll be able to do that they cannot do right now. So a transformation offer sounds like this. In 12 weeks, you'll have a positioned coaching offer, your first paying client, and a clear, repeatable process for getting the next client, which, by the way, is the transformation that I promise in my group coaching program, Ignite. But you see how specific that is? Somebody dropped specific in the comments. It clearly names a before and an after. So within 12 weeks, you'll have a positioned coaching offer, your first paying client, and a clear, repeatable process for getting your next client. It makes a promise that someone can evaluate. The first offer sells information, the second offer sells a result. And people pay significantly more for results than they pay for information, in which they can get that information for free anyway. So the clearer you are about the result you deliver, the easier every other part of building your business becomes. Before I get into this fourth lesson, if I have said something so far that has made you go, or if you have learned something so far in these lessons that I have made, that I have learned through the mistakes that I have made, give this video a thumbs up. So let's get into this next lesson, lesson number 4. Because this lesson is the one that surprises people the most, because it challenges something many of you believe and have believed, that I believed your entire career. Being excellent at something and being able to sell something are not the same skill. They're different skills that can be learned separately, but also combined. And most women have only ever been taught how to be excellent. I want you to think about how your career rewards you. You get promoted for your performance, not your self-promotion. In fact, self-promotion is often like you can't even do it in a lot of these organizational structures, right? So you got recognition for the quality of your work, not for how clearly you can describe its value to someone who didn't already see it. And the entire system, it was set up so that other people, your managers, your peers, organizational structures, did the work of evaluating and surfacing your expertise. You didn't have to sell it yourself. You just had to be good, right? And over time, that created a belief that being good is enough, that the work speaks for itself, that the right people will eventually recognize what you bring. And women struggle with this one. I struggled with this one in particular because They've spent years, sometimes decades, being recognized and rewarded for their competence. And in traditional career environments, skills, your skills, it creates opportunity. You do excellent work, you get promoted, you get more responsibility, your reputation builds, and then doors open. Am I lying? That's how it worked for me. If it worked for you like that, give this video a thumbs up. The system is designed to reward the best performers. So when women step into entrepreneurship, it makes complete sense that they believe the same logic applies, right? If I'm good enough, the right people will find me. If my offer is strong enough, it'll sell itself. But that's not how it works online. Online, in the online space, your skills are the baseline. It is the minimum expectation. So, what drives sales beyond that is visibility, it is communication, it is positioning, and it is trust. And trust we just talked about. So, there are incredibly talented women right now online who are making almost no money because nobody knows they exist or nobody clearly understands exactly what they do. And there are women with moderate skill sets generating significant income because they know how to articulate their value clearly and consistently, and they're not afraid to make an offer. Now, the goal here is for you to, obviously, right? Is for you to have both real skills combined with strong communication. That right there is an extremely powerful combination. But if you're depending on your skills alone to carry your business, you'll eventually get frustrated by results that don't match the quality of what you do. Ask me how I know. You will have to learn how to describe transformation in language that your audience uses, not in language that reflects your credentials, not in language that describes a function. You have to learn how to talk about the problem you solve in a way that makes people feel seen and understood rather than educated and informed. You have to learn how to make an offer that is clear and specific enough that the right person says yes without needing to be convinced. Because if you need to convince someone, let me tell you, that is not the right person. And the shift that I want you to make coming out of this conversation is from I need to become more qualified to I need to become more visible and more communicative. Because for the women that I work with, the gap is never skills because they have more than enough skills to help the people that they want to serve. In fact, I would argue that women are sitting on more monetizable knowledge than almost any other group precisely because they've spent years developing skills inside of organizations solving real problems. So we're already more skilled than anybody else. So the gap is almost always the willingness to be seen and the ability to describe what you do in a language that connects. And both of those things are learnable. They're skills, not talents, which means that those skills are available to you right now. So then I guess the next question is, how do you develop those skills? The same way you developed your professional skills. You develop those skills through repetition. You get them through feedback. You get them through willingness to be imperfect while you're learning. So you start talking about what you do before you feel ready to. You start making offers before they feel positioned or polished enough. You pay attention to what language makes people lean in and what language makes them check out. You study the people in your space who communicate well, and you notice what they do that you are not doing yet. You ask people in your audience what they're struggling with, and you listen closely to the exact words because That's the language that you should be using. And those words, they become your sales copy and your messaging. Communication is a craft. And like all crafts, it develops through doing. The genius is in the doing. Crafts are not developed through waiting until you feel confident enough to try. Okay? I have another lesson. I am giving you all the gold in this conversation. I am giving you all of the mistakes that I have made so that you don't have to make them on your journey. Now I want to talk about perfectionism. How many perfectionists do we got in the building? I'm raising my hand. You can raise your hand too. I can't see you, but you can see me. Let's talk about perfectionism. Somebody drop perfectionism in the chat because this is the one that delays more women than almost any other obstacle. And I want to offer a different perspective for it because I think the way it usually gets talked about, it makes people feel bad about themselves instead of something that frees them, instead of something that uplifts them, right? Perfectionism is always talked about as something that's bad. But let's talk about it. Perfectionism sounds responsible. It sounds like high standards, like caring about quality, like wanting to show up well for the people you serve. And sometimes it is those things, but a lot of times perfection is a protection strategy. Perfectionism is often a way to stay busy without becoming vulnerable. Because if you're constantly refining and tweaking and improving, you never have to find out what the market thinks. So you feel safe inside of your preparation phase, and it feels smart, not fearful from the inside, right? Because you can endlessly tweak your website, redesign branding, rewrite your bio, adjust your fonts, rearrange your offer structure, change your color palette, plan content that you don't publish, and outline ideas that you don't execute. But here's the thing, technically, all of those things that I just described, you're working because you're putting in hours. Your calendar is full, but you're not testing anything. You're not selling anything. You're not gathering feedback from people in the market. You're not building the evidence that your business needs to grow. So here's the thing about perfectionism. It protects you from the possibility of rejection. So if your offer is never quite finished, the market never gets to tell you that it didn't resonate. If you never fully launch, nobody can say no. And that protection, it feels like safety. Like nobody wants to be rejected. Nobody wants to be told that, girl, this is not hitting. Nobody wants to be told that. So perfection is like perfectionism is a protection mechanism. But entrepreneurship, it doesn't grow in safety. It grows through exposure. It grows through putting something in front of people and then letting them respond to it. And that response, whatever it is the most valuable data that you can collect. Because a no from the market, it teaches you something specific about your positioning or your messaging or your audience targeting. Silence, it teaches you something about visibility and whether the right people know you exist. A yes from the market, it confirms what's working and it gives you the confidence to keep going. Like, we love to hear the yeses over here. All of it is information though. The yeses, the nos, and the silence, and you can't get that information and that data any other way except by moving. And one of the fastest ways to grow in business is to stop trying to avoid every imperfect outcome and start treating imperfect outcomes as data. because the version of your offer that gets you your first 3 clients is going to look very different from the version that gets you your first 30 clients. And the version that gets you your 30 will look very different from where your business eventually ends up being. And that's how it's supposed to work. You're not supposed to have it all figured out before you start. You're supposed to figure it out through starting. So I want to leave you with a question on this one that I think is worth thinking about today. And that question is your current level of preparation reasonable for where you are in your building process, or has it become a way to stay in motion without taking the risk? Because those are two different things. And knowing which phase, we'll call it phase, you're in right now, it changes everything about your next step. So here's the deal. If you're in legitimate preparation phase because there are gaps in your knowledge that will affect your ability to deliver, that is reasonable preparation, and I want you to keep going. But if you've been preparing for 6 months or a year and your offer still isn't in front of anyone, that is worth taking an honest look, because the market cannot give you feedback on something it has never seen. And feedback is what you need next, more than another revision, more than another course, more than another planning session. The fastest path from where you are to where you want to be runs directly through imperfect action and the information that you're able to gather by taking that action. Are y'all finding this helpful right so far? Hello, hello, hello. Yes, yes. Just somebody said perfectionist over here. Amen. You are not, I'm not alone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel seen and I feel validated. So here's something I really wish somebody had warned me about before I started, because it caught me off guard and I have watched it catch so many women that I work with off guard too. And that is, this one is deep. We are getting deep. Building a business, it changes your identity in ways that go so much deeper than strategy. People start off in this industry thinking they're building an offer or building an online business, but what's happening simultaneously is that they're rebuilding themselves, man. And that process, y'all, can be extremely disorienting, especially for high achieving women who have spent their entire lives operating inside of certainty, structure, clear performance metrics, and defined rules of what success is supposed to look like. Your career gave you a roadmap. You knew what excellent performance looked like for your role. You knew how to get feedback, how to measure your progress, how to earn your next promotion or the next opportunity. The system, it has a logic to it. You work hard, you perform well, you get rewarded. And that logic is deeply ingrained after years of operating inside of it. Can you relate? Entrepreneurship, though, it removes that roadmap altogether. Where's the roadmap? I'm still looking for it. I can't find it. That is why I'm having this conversation with y'all. Because there is no manager who grades your work or who tells you that you're on track. There is no annual review that confirms that you're doing a good or a bad job. There is no organizational structure that defines what the next level looks like for you or how you're supposed to reach it. Sometimes you're making decisions with incomplete information and you won't even know whether or not that information was right until 6 months later or even a year. This is entrepreneurship. Listen, I am being so real with y'all today. Sometimes growth feels completely invisible before it becomes visible. Sometimes your confidence develops after the action. So you have to take the action to get the confidence instead of before it. And that is the opposite of how most high achievers are used to operating. I know I'm not the only one. That ambiguity, it surprises people, especially women who are highly capable in other contexts, because capability in one environment doesn't necessarily automatically transfer as confidence in a new one. You might be highly educated. I have multiple degrees. You might be highly experienced. I've worked in my career field for decades. You might be excellent at what you do and still feel like a complete beginner in entrepreneurship. I wish somebody would have sent me this video right here when I started in this space. But here's the thing, that is not a failure, a signal of failure. That is what it feels like to be in a completely new environment that requires a new version of yourself. The woman who thrives in a corporate structure and the woman who builds her own business are not the same person. The second woman, the one who's building her business, she has to be developed. And that development happens through doing things before you feel fully qualified to do them. Making decisions without all the information you would prefer to have. It means tolerating uncertainty for longer than it feels comfortable. And it means showing up anyway on the days when nothing seems to be working yet. And I want to give you permission to be in the awkward, messy middle. Because the middle is where most women quit because it feels like it should be easier by now. Like something must be wrong because it hasn't clicked yet. But the middle is exactly where the identity shift happens. And the women who get through the middle, they're the ones who decide that the discomfort of building their business is worth more than the familiarity of safety and standing still. And I want to add something else here because I think it will reframe this whole conversation. The discomfort of building something new is real. It is so real. But you know what's also real? The vulnerability of not building anything at all. The fact is, your job feels stable right now, but stability is not the same as safety. Safety is having options. Safety is knowing that if your company restructures, if leadership changes, if your industry shifts, that you have something of your own that travels with you. The skills that you build your offer around, they don't disappear when your employer makes a different decision because your skills belong to you. That's what makes the identity shift worth going through. We are not just building businesses here. We are building something that no one can take away from us. And what helps most when you're in the middle is community and honest conversation with people who are in the same place as you, not a highlight reel of people who are further ahead than you are. It's the conversations with women who are in the same season who can say, me too, when you share something difficult. That right there, listen, that is part of what I built my upcoming workshop, Her Income Lab, around. And I want you to know that whatever you're feeling in your current season of building, you're not behind. You're not behind. So, next lesson. This belief, this one right here that I'm getting ready to talk about, it delays more more women than almost anything else that I see. People think they need a massive audience before they can make any real money from their skills, and that belief keeps women sitting on their ideas for years longer than necessary. Here is the truth about audience size that most people in this space, they will not say it out loud, they will not say it directly. You don't need a huge audience. You need a relevant audience. A small audience that deeply trusts you is worth way more than a large audience that barely pays attention to you. I have watched women with a few hundred followers close their first coaching client before women who have tens of thousands of followers who never made a real direct specific offer to anyone. The difference is never the numbers. It's the specificity of your message, the clarity of your offer, and the depth of the trust between you and your audience. So when your content tries to appeal to everyone, it ends up speaking to nobody. So people will scroll right past because nothing is making them feel individually seen or addressed. But when someone can read your post or they watch one of your videos and they think, dang, Nick Scott is talking directly to me. This is my exact situation. That's when people stop scrolling. That's when they come back again. And that is when they eventually buy. Relevance converts. Scale follows that conversion. So if you're currently operating under the belief that you need 10,000 followers or 20,000 or 50,000 before you can launch anything, I want you to challenge that belief. That is a protection strategy dressed up as a business strategy. There is no magic follower count that makes you ready to sell. There's only an offer that solves a problem for a specific person and a clear path for that person to say yes. And you can start there right at this moment. You can build an audience while you serve clients right now. Let those early clients fund your growth. What do they say? Learn while you earn. Learn while you earn. Let those early clients, let their results give you the testimonials that make your audience grow faster. And I want to push back on one more thing here because I think it is worth talking about. A lot of women use the I need a bigger audience first as a way to delay making an offer that they're nervous about making. And I understand it. I understand the psychology of it. An offer that falls flat when 20 people saw it, it feels safer than one that falls flat when 20,000 people saw it. But the logic is backwards. The smaller your audience is, the more important it is to be making direct, specific offers to them because you can't coast on the volume of the numbers. You have to convert at a higher rate, right? And the way you convert at a higher rate with a small audience is through the depth of your relationship and the clarity of your offer, not through waiting to grow bigger first. So I want you to start making offers to the people who are already there because their response will tell you more than any amount of planning ever could. So this next lesson doesn't come up enough in business education, and I think it should be part of the conversation from the very first day from jump. Because understanding this lesson, it makes it harder, it makes the harder moments that you're going to experience easier to navigate. There's still going to be hard moments, but it makes it easier to navigate. So here it is. Building a business will surface things about yourself that your career never did. It will surface your relationship with visibility, your comfort level with uncertainty, your patience when results are slow. It will surface your ability to keep going and going like the Energizer Bunny and going when you get feedback that you didn't really want or you didn't hope for. And the reason I want to talk about this as a gift rather than a problem is because most high achieving women have never had a container that asks this much of them in this particular way. I said it earlier in this conversation. I'm going to get ready to say it again. Your career rewarded you for performance. Entrepreneurship rewards persistence and it rewards self awareness in a different combination. And the women who build real things, they're not usually the ones who had no patterns to work through. They're the ones who got good at recognizing the patterns and then they're still moving anyway. They're not moving perfectly or without fear or the doubt or the moments of wanting to quit. Listen, if you are an entrepreneur or you're building something on the side of your 9 to 5 and you haven't experienced the feeling of wanting to quit, I would say that you're not doing something right. Even if you want to quit, move anyway. Business also requires something that most careers don't prepare you for, and that is repetition before reward. You have to show up consistently for a long time before results compound in a way that is visible to anyone, including you. And that's hard in a world that's built on instant feedback, especially online, where it looks like everyone else is glowing up and growing up faster and figuring it out sooner. But comparison is distorting your view. You're comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 8. You're seeing their results without seeing the years of the invisible work that came before those results. Consistency compounds quietly long before it compounds publicly. And the women who eventually build their businesses and they built it into something, it looked like they were getting nowhere for a long time before things started to click. So when you notice a pattern showing up, when you see a pattern that's consistently revealing itself, I want you to recognize it rather than letting it disguise itself as something else. Because avoidance, we want to not do this. Avoidance that is dressed up as preparation. We want to avoid fear that is dressed up as discernment. And then once you see it, once you see the pattern, I want you to recognize it, right? And then take a small action step anyway. Not to fix the pattern forever, just to move despite the pattern, because that is where the shift begins. Now, this next lesson has a direct effect on how much money you make. Because we're doing this thing to edit our income, right? So I want to spend just a little bit of time here. Many women, professional women especially, have a complicated relationship with sales because oftentimes they're associating it with pressure, convincing, bothering people, being pushy, or becoming inauthentic in some way. Do you feel like that about sales? I have felt like that about sales. Why do we feel that way? Well, because that's what we've experienced, right? But that association, and because of that association with sales, what happens is women, they will significantly undersell themselves. They hint at their offers instead of directly asking for the sales. They'll soften every invitation until it barely registers as an invitation to buy the thing. Women will avoid putting a price on anything in a direct and confident way. They add so many qualifiers and caveats that by the end of this conversation, the person who is supposed to be buying, they're not sure whether they're being too invited to buy something or just being given information. But the fact is that these businesses grow through offers, not assumptions. And people can't say yes to something that was never clearly presented to them. They need to understand what your offer is, who it is for, what outcome it helps them create, and why is now the right time that they need to act on it. So communicating things clearly when it comes to sales, it is not manipulation, it's clarity. And here's the thing that I want you to take away from the sales part of this conversation. Clarity is a form of respect. When you make a direct, specific offer to someone who has a problem you can solve, you're not pressuring them. You're giving them information that they need to make a good decision to help themselves, to move themselves forward. You're trusting them to be capable of saying yes or no based on what is right for them. And that is the opposite of manipulation. Manipulation withholds information. Direct selling provides information. So the discomfort that most women feel around sales, it is a real thing, and I don't want to minimize it because it deserves to be acknowledged. But it's a largely learned response, not a signal that selling is wrong. Many of us were taught that wanting to be paid for our skills is somehow unseemly, that it should feel awkward to put a number on the things that we know. The belief is worth examining because it's costing you income, and it's costing the people who need what you have. It's costing them because they can't have access to it. So if your skills can truly help people and not communicating that, that is a real disservice. The person who needs what you have, they don't get access to it because you're too uncomfortable to make a clear invitation to work with you. Think about that perspective as we move into this close, because here's what ethical, comfortable selling can look like in practice if the pressure heavy version has turned you off from the entire concept of selling. This part was so uncomfortable for me when I first started, but it's really easy. So here's what it could look like. It looks like ending a piece of content with, if this resonated with you and you want to go deeper, here's how to work with me. Easy, right? It looks like having a direct conversation with someone who has been asking you questions and saying, "It sounds like you might be a good fit for what I have to offer. Would you like to hear more?" It's an invitation. You see how it's an invitation? You're not manipulating here. Sales looks like sending a clear, direct email that says, "Here's what I have, here's who it's for, here's the price, and here's the link to buy." There is no manipulation. There is no false urgency. It is just a clear invitation that you extend to people who have a problem that you can solve. And I want to just take this out for a quick second on why this matters beyond income itself, because if you've ever sat in on any of these conversations, you know that the income, that is just like the superficial part. Like, this is so much deeper than that, because the goal here is not just to make money. Let's be clear, though. We want to make money. We want to make money. We don't minimize the importance of money in our lives, but the goal is to have options. It's the freedom to make decisions from a place of choice instead of necessity. It's the fulfillment that comes from doing work that's aligned with who you are, not just work that pays the bills. When you learn to sell well and sell comfortably, you're not just generating revenue, you're building the thing that makes every other area of your life and your legacy more spacious. And that is worth getting uncomfortable for. I said it yesterday in our live. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. So if I had to start completely over today, knowing everything that I know now, here's what I would prioritize differently. First, I would build audience trust before obsessing over product perfection. I spent far too long building things in isolation before I had a real relationship with the people I wanted to serve. I thought the offer was the most important thing, and it is not. The trust that makes people willing to buy the offer is the most important thing. So build that first, and then let your offer follow. Second, I would create faster and refine publicly instead of waiting for perfection privately. I would ship the imperfect version, gather real feedback, and let the market shape the next version instead of trying to imagine what trying to imagine what the market wants from inside of my own head. Every revision that I made in isolation, it cost me time that I could have spent collecting real data. Do not make the mistake I did. Third, I would focus on messaging earlier and more intensely than anything else in my business, not my logo, not my website, although I do love my websites, not the framework name. I would focus on the ability to say in one clear, specific sentence what I do, who I help, and what they get from working for me. Because that one skill right there is worth more in the early stages of your business than almost anything else you can invest time in developing. The fourth thing I would do, I would spend less time trying to look established and more time just being useful. Beginners focus way too much energy on appearance and looking polished and professional and put together. But usefulness builds momentum faster than your aesthetics. People, here's the thing. You have to show people that you can solve their problem. Get polished later. Use what you got to get what you want. And then lastly, I would stop underestimating the value of my existing skills far sooner than I did. I spent real time, real significant time feeling like I needed to become somebody different, feeling like I needed to accumulate more credentials and have a bigger platform before I had something worth selling. But the skills I had built over the years of real work and real life experience, they were already more than enough to start with. I just, back then, I hadn't learned how to package it yet. And that's exactly why I built Her Income Lab. And I want to be honest with you about something because I think it'll save you some time. Most of what separates the women who are generating income from their skills and the women who are still waiting to start is not experience, credentials, audience size, or resources. It is the decision that they already have, that what they have is already enough to start with. That decision is available to you literally right in this moment. Not when you finish your next course or when you hit your next follower milestone. It's available to you right now. And every single day that you spend waiting for conditions that feel more certain is a day of income. It is a day of momentum. It is a day of confidence that you don't get back. Your first offer, it doesn't have to be perfect. I have just spent how much time? The last hour talking about that. It has to exist. Your offer, it has to exist, and I want you to start there. So, if you're currently sitting on an idea, overthinking your first offer, you're questioning whether you're ready or not, or wondering whether people will take you seriously, I want to leave you with this. The women who are building additional income streams right now, they're not doing it because they had more advantages than you. They're doing it because they decided that their existing skills, their experience, and their genuine desire to help people were enough to start with. And that decision is available to you today. Your 9 to 5 was never meant to be your only plan. The skills you've built inside your career were never meant to stay locked inside someone else's company forever. And the second stream of income that you've been thinking about building is closer than you think because you already have the most important ingredient. You have skills that someone else needs. What you need now is strategy, positioning, and the willing to start before everything feels perfectly in place. I want to give you a summary of what we covered today because 10 lessons is a lot, and I want you to leave with the right things in your notebook if you're taking notes. Your first offer is not your forever offer. Give yourself permission to start imperfectly and learn as you go. Build demand before you perfect the product. Trust makes your offers convert, not polish. Your offer is not just information. People are paying for transformation, simplicity, and speed. Expertise alone doesn't guarantee sales. You need visibility and communication skills too. Perfectionism. Y'all remember I talked about this one? It is fear with good PR. The market cannot give you feedback on something it has never seen. And this one was important. The identity shift, it is real. So please give yourself grace in the middle. And remember, you're building something that no one can take from you. Your first audience is smaller than you think you need. Relevance and trust beat follower count every single time. And lastly, your business will expose your patterns. I want you to recognize those patterns, but I also want you to take action anyway. Selling is not manipulation, it is clarity, it's an invitation, and it's how you get your skills in front of the people who need it most. You have more to offer than you've been giving yourself credit for. Your skills are there, your experience is there, and what you need now is strategy, positioning, and the willingness to start before everything feels perfectly in place. So I want to close by saying this. Early access pricing for Her Income Lab, it ends on Sunday, May 10th. General admission is $97, or you can upgrade to the VIP for $147. After Sunday, those prices are going up. We will be meeting on May 30th, and you will be walking out of that room with your offer built, not outlined, not planned. Your offer will be built. The link for the workshop is down in the description, or you can go to my website at herincomeedit.com/workshop. And if this conversation helped you, if any of what I said resonated with you, hit that subscribe button, turn your bell notifications on, share this video, the replay, with a woman who you know is building something. And I want to thank each and every one of you that has spent any time with me. Happy Friday. Happy Mother's Day to the moms out there. Happy Mother's Day. I hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. I hope that you have gained some value from the lessons that I gave you today, because I really, truly feel like you don't need to make the same mistakes that I did. So if there's any of the conversation that you need to revisit, go ahead and watch the replay. All right. Happy Mother's Day. Have a wonderful weekend. I will be back here on Monday at noon Mountain Time. Thanks so much for joining, y'all. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.